It's been a minute since I've posted any sort of an update, but I have a really weird one here for you today. So I decided to go to take dry January a step further and cut out everything and anything at all. So I haven't had anything to drink since December, and I also once in a while I don't take very much stuff at all, but once in a while I used to take like a CBD/THC gummy, really small dosage to help me sleep at night, but not every night, just once in a while. And so in this January journey, or maybe 2025, or maybe lifelong, I don't know, but for right now, I decided to do like a super cleanse, like just get rid of anything out of my body possible. And so I started taking, I found this stuff called THC Clean Plus. And it's just like a bunch of herbals that are supposed to help you detox your system. So on Sunday night, I worked all through the weekend. Sunday, I did a double. We were supposed to close at 8 o'clock. And by like 7:30-ish, my area was slow. So my boss was like, well, you might as well, close out and go home. So I got home probably close to 8 o'clock, got ready for bed. And I decided I had taken the THC Clean the night before, and sleeping really pretty well without any help. And so I decided I would take it again last night. I figured I'd take it for a while just to make sure my whole system was cleaned out. So I take the THC Clean Plus, and about half an hour, or not even half an hour later, I started feeling super dizzy. Like not just like as if I was drunk and stoned out of my mind, like whacked. And I'm like, what the hell just hit me? And so I went down to my bed to lay down, and I'm still not feeling right. I still feel like brain fog, fuzzy, my ears are ringing. I just don't feel quite right. So anyway, I wasn't feeling quite right. And then as I was laying there, I started to get paranoid. And I thought, what if, there was just no explanation for how I was feeling. And I was thinking, what if it's like carbon monoxide or something? So I called out for my son, whose room is near mine, and he didn't answer. So then in my off thinking, I was like, oh my God, he's been affected too. So I got out of bed and I stumbled to go find him, and he had been upstairs, and he came downstairs, and I said, are you feeling dizzy? And he said, no. I said, are you sure you're not feeling dizzy? And he said, no. And I said, all right, then we need to go upstairs and call 911, because something is wrong with me. Something was wrong. I knew something was wrong. Something wasn't right. Something still doesn't feel right. So we call the ambulance. I'm sitting on the living room couch, and as time is going by, it's getting worse. And then I started like involuntarily, like these like muscle jerks, like all over. And my eyes, I couldn't keep them open. They were like, I would try to open them and they were just like fluttering. So the police were there, EMTs. All of my vitals were fine. My heart felt like it was pounding, but my vitals were fine. And so they got me in the ambulance. My son went in the ambulance with me. At that point, I'm just shaking uncontrollably. In the back, way back of my head, I was aware of things that were going on around me, but I had really hard time speaking or getting words out. It sounded like there was marbles in my mouth when I was trying to talk. And so we get to the hospital, and it was, I'm in like one of the little ER rooms, got to Southampton Hospital, and I'm sorry, but I will never go to that fucking hospital ever again. It's bad enough that they kicked my grandmother out the door in June when she broke her friggin' shoulder, and we had to bring her to another hospital after that. It was horrific. But so I'm laying there, and I'm in and out, like I'm like dozing in and out. As I'm coming to, I'm like shaking. And finally, after what seemed like forever, and I don't know how long it was, but I know it was a really long time, finally a doctor comes in, and he goes, like, I swear to God, I wasn't even sure. He was so mean. I wasn't even sure if he was a figment of my imagination at that point. So he comes in and he says, so why are you here? As I'm like visibly shaking. And I said, what? And he goes, why are you here? And I said, and I had a hard time speaking. And I said, because of this. And he said, well, what? And I was like, and I'm thinking maybe he's like testing my cognitive ability or something. And I said, well, because I'm shaking. And he said, well, you weren't shaking a minute ago. You just started shaking. And I said, and then I'm like really questioning reality at this point. And I'm like, I did? And he goes, you just started shaking this minute when I walked in. And I'm thinking, well, you just walked in. So what? And so I literally was like, what? And he goes, do you want to stay here or do you want to go home? And I said, no, first he says to me, how did you get here? Did you drive yourself? And I'm like, how does the doctor in the emergency room not know that I was brought in by an ambulance? That's fucking scary. He doesn't know that I was brought in by an ambulance. And now I'm like, all right, now he's just testing my memory or something. So I'm like, no, I came by ambulance. And, or I said, no, ambulance. And he said, so who called 911? And I'm like, well, I did, because my mom and my kids couldn't find their phones. And he said, so why did you call 911? And I said, he goes, did you call 911 because you were shaking? And I said, no, before that, because I wasn't shaking when I called 911. I was just feeling really dizzy and like out of my mind. And so he goes, well, why did you call 911? And I said, because something's wrong. Something is not right. Something's wrong. So he goes, well, what's this about THC? And I said, no, it's a cleanse. Well, why are you cleansing? Are you trying to get a drug test? And I was like, what? No. I have no. And he goes, well, what do you do for a living? And currently I'm bartending. So I said, I'm a bartender. He rolled his eyes at me. He went like that. And I'm like, judgment much? First of all, I mean, I have a college degree and I had my own bookkeeping business. I could have just said I'm a bookkeeper, right? I mean, maybe he would have respected me a little bit more. I don't fucking know. And maybe I shouldn't have told him about this stupid THC cleanse, because as soon as he heard THC, he pegged me for some sort of a drug addict, which anybody who knows me knows that that's like the farthest thing from me on the planet. And even if I was, I didn't deserve to be treated that way. He was just awful. So I said, no, I said, I'm healthy. And I kept trying to tell him I'm a healthy person. I live a healthy life. I don't, and he's like, well, do you smoke? No, I don't smoke. I don't do anything. And then he says, well, how much have you had to drink tonight? And I'm like thinking, does he mean like water beverages, or is he looking for, and I said, you mean alcohol? And he said, how many drinks have you had? And I said, none. I haven't had anything since December. And, and then it's like, and then he said, well, why are you doing this THC cleanse? And I said, I'm just trying to be healthy. And I said to the nurse, then he left the room, and I said to the nurse, I said, it's not like I'm a pothead. I don't take a lot of THC. I just was trying to get cleaner than I already am. I mean, I'm a fucking vegetarian, for crying out loud. I'm a very healthy person. And I mean, usually when I get blood work done, I have stellar results. My cholesterol is amazing. All my blood work is amazing. Usually I have the health of somebody half my age. My heart, I do have a little weird heart condition. I have mitral valve prolapse, and I have something called premature ventricular contractions, PVCs. But those are not life-threatening. They don't affect my health or anything, and they certainly wouldn't cause any of this. So they proceeded to do a finger prick, which bruised the fuck out of my finger. And I don't even know how you bruise somebody's finger that badly with just a finger prick, but he did. And then they put me on IV fluids and took blood. All he did was screen for drugs. He literally screened for every cocaine, heroin, barbiturates. I mean, everything. Just like literally, he pegged me as some sort of a drug addict. And so then he says to me, do you want to stay here or do you want to go home? And at this point, I just wanted to cry because I was so frustrated and disgusted. And I said, I didn't want to stay regardless, but I'm like, I want to go home. And he goes, why did you come here? And I said, to get help. Help for what? Help to stop shaking because I don't know what the fuck is going on with me. And so he didn't ask me anything about my mental state. He didn't ask me anything about anything except to literally treat me with disgust. And he goes, then just stop shaking. Literally, he says, stop shaking. And I said, what? And he goes, you started shaking when you wanted to. You can stop shaking when you want to. And I was like, I can? Like, I literally my whole body was in tremors. And I thought I was being punked. I literally thought I was being punked. So I said, and then I said to him, am I imagining this? And then he said, well, you weren't shaking before and now you are. And I'm like, it was like blowing my mind. So then finally they let my daughter come in. And while he was talking to me, she came in through the curtain. And he looks over and he goes, excuse you, to my daughter. And she's like, excuse me? And he goes, people don't usually just barge in through closed curtains. And she's like, well, they told me I could come in. And he's like, who told you you could come in? And she said, the nurse. And so he was just, I don't know what was wrong with this guy, but just the most meanest, like, if he had horns growing out of his head, it would have made more sense to me than anything else, because this dude was like fucking evil incarnate. So anyway, at some point the tremors started decreasing and I was exhausted. I was still super dizzy. And at that point, I just wanted to go home. So he came back in. He's like, well, you have, said something about rhino enterovirus, which is basically a cold. Cold is not going to do this to me. And he's like, so do you want to go home? And I'm like, yeah. So he goes, well, you feel better now, huh? And I'm like, yes. I'm fucking lying out of my fucking teeth, because at this point I felt like I was in some sort of alternate universe with this guy. So they signed me out, and then he says, oh, and by the way, anxiety can do this too. And I'm like, I didn't tell you anything about my life, about who I am, about whether or not I have any anxiety at all. So making assumptions like that is awfully ridiculous. And they sent me on my way. So I still don't know what was wrong. I still feel super weird. And I do have an appointment. I was able to get an appointment, not with my primary care physician, but with the nurse practitioner tomorrow, hoping that she'll do like complete blood work, maybe, I don't know. If anybody has any ideas, I was drinking a lot of pH water, like Essentia, and the one water that I was drinking was Zen water, which is, made from whatever. The plastic that it's in is recycled plastic, so it's supposed to be better for the environment. It's stupid. It's just pH balanced water. And that's all I've been drinking. And so I'm going to just have her do, like, I don't know, I guess a pH balance. The only thing that was a little strange in my blood work was my bilirubin was a little bit high, which is your liver enzymes. Mine always run a little bit high anyway because I've got a funky pancreas. I've got something called pancreatic diverticulum, which is like, it's just a funky pancreas, but it's not, I've never had pancreatitis. I've always been able to manage it. I live healthy. So, I'm just not getting a lot of explanations for this. If anybody has ever had anything like this, let me know. I just am at a loss for what this is. Could it be that I'm drinking too much pH balanced water? Is that even a thing? Is that, it's like crazy? But my symptoms are that I have brain fog. I feel like dizzy. I feel like I'm kind of like my brain is up here, not here. As far as the enterovirus or whatever, this enterovirus is basically a cold. Do I have sinus pressure? Yeah, a little bit. Is that causing it? I don't know. But if it was, it's viral, it's not bacterial, so there's nothing, I don't think that an antibiotic can help with that or anything. So yeah, I would rather die than go to Southampton Hospital ever again. After them misdiagnosing my sister-in-law, who ended up with a stroke, and because she'd been in there multiple times before that with severe migraines, they never even did an MRI on her, and then she ended up with a stroke, which probably could have been preventable. My grandmother, who literally, her arm broke this summer in June, the ball of her shoulder snapped off and it was displaced. She's 99 years old, and they did not want to keep her at all. They said that there was nothing that they could do. She had ridiculously low blood pressure, and they stuck her in a wheelchair. She couldn't even stand up. Stuck her in a wheelchair in the hospital gown. This is how desperate they were to get rid of her so quickly. In her hospital gown, they wheeled her out and stuck her in my mom's car, only for us to get back to my grandmother's house. She was in excruciating agony. Can you imagine? And she started losing consciousness because her blood pressure was so low. We ended up putting her back in the car and driving her to Peconic Bay Medical Center, another hospital that's another half an hour farther away than Southampton Hospital. They kept her. They did all of the typical fall tests that you would do. And when an elderly person falls, you're supposed to do tests on their brain and everything else to see if there were another reason for her to fall down besides just she tripped, because that's not what happened. At this point, it looks like her blood pressure dumped so low and she fell over backwards, and that's why she had her arm break. But Peconic kept her appropriately and then released her to a rehab center, and they kept her for the entire summer, whereas Southampton Hospital just discharged her that moment. So strike three. I'm sorry, my sister-in-law, my grandmother, and now me. Strike three, Southampton. Fuck you. I will never, ever, ever go to you ever again. I will tell everybody that I know not to go to you. And if anybody in my family ever needs to go to the hospital, they're getting in my car. I don't care if they're fucking bleeding out. they're going to fucking Riverhead because Southampton is a waste of time and mean as fucking hell. And I still don't know what's wrong with me. So, anyway, have a great day.